Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located. Salutations, everyone. Um, I'm not on camera right now because I'm still in bed. Saturday is normally like my real chill day for me, and I don't feel the need to rush to get out of bed. I'm comfortable right now, and yeah, there you have it. So, I remember yesterday on my video, mentioned that I forgot certain topics that I wanted to discuss. So I remember them now. So I said, let me go ahead and turn on my camera, click my button before I forget again. But I just wanted to kind of give my little take on the William McNeil Jr. situation. I wanted to make sure that I watched some videos and got some perspectives and opinions from different sources and content creators about this incident, and so I know that this is a real touchy subject because when you think about interactions with police, it's not always favorable. It comes with frustration, it comes with anger, because you know that there are a lot of people in certain ethnic groups that are treated differently when it comes to their interaction with law enforcement, and it's unfortunate. But you have to also understand that not all cops are the same, and there are a lot of law enforcement officials that have pure intentions when they go out there and they sign up to risk their lives to protect us. And we don't always make it easy on our end either. It goes both ways. We don't make it always easy, and I don't think most police officers, I don't think that they are coming, leaving their homes, leaving their families, and with the mindset that they are going to um, brutally harm someone or kill someone in line of fire, or anything like that. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say kill. Delete someone in the line of duty, in the call of duty. Now, do I think that there are some cops that use excessive force? Absolutely. Do I think that there's some people that need to comply and in order to avoid situations from escalating? Absolutely. And this is a prime example because I listened to multiple sides of this, and I've also saw the footage. Initially we saw the footage that Mr. McNeil put out there that made him the victim overall. So I understand why people would view it as excessive force when he's being punched in the face and the glass shattering on him. Of course, the way that angle was presented, of course, you're going to view it from that perspective. But when you look at the body cam footage from another angle, your perspective changed because mine did. He was stopped, and he led with energy that wasn't favorable or did not work well in his favor, because the police officer explained why he was stopping him. Because when Mr. McNeil asked the officer, do you have a reason for stopping me? And he said, of course I have a reason for stopping you. And then he proceeded to ask again and again, why are you stopping me? And he explained several times. So he was combative from the start. And he explained why he had to open his door instead of opening his window at first, because he said his window was malfunctioning. And so the cop proceeded to explain that due to the weather conditions that he needed his headlights on. So you wouldn't think that would be a big deal. You would think that okay, my lights isn't on. Even if he felt like he was being singled out, that, saying that everybody else did not have their lights on, and um, it wasn't raining, which it did look damp outside. If they're stopping you for that reason and that reason alone, I just feel like, in my opinion, just based off of that alone, you could have just took the L on that one and just complied. You could have just, but he made it worse by still mouthing off. He proceeded to, even after the officer commanded him several times to step out of the vehicle, he closes the car door and demands to speak to a supervisor. I mean, he has the right to ask to speak to a supervisor, but he was asked, several times because, in the state of, in Jacksonville, Florida, as I've read and heard that the officer was well within his right to command for him to exit the vehicle, and he didn't. He closed it shut, and he was asked multiple times to open the car door. Some might say that the cops themselves didn't have their headlights on, and there are exceptions when it comes to traffic stops, when it comes to certain scenarios. There are certain procedures that are made to be an exception to the rule, depending on the situation when it comes to the officers. But I don't want to get too much into that. But the bottom line is that this could have been avoided. And let me just make sure that I emphasize this. I am not condoning the officers punching Mr. McNeil in the face. Again, I am not condoning the violence towards him, but there are times where a certain amount of force is used when a person is non-compliant and resisting, and that's what he did. He did resist arrest. If you look at the whole video, so he refused to obey the command of the officer. And so that's when it led up to the footage that he presented initially, where, they had to break the window. And that's when you saw him just, sitting there. And also he didn't have his seatbelt on either. He probably, more than likely, he put on his seatbelt after he closed the door and refused to exit the vehicle. But he made it appear as if he had the seatbelt on all along. When you saw his footage that he submitted, which was months after the incident, which was months later, that this all resurfaced, because there was an initial investigation when the incident first occurred. There was already an investigation that took place, but Mr. McNeil had submitted this footage months later, because we all understand that, a lot of times lawsuits tend to be the go-to to make what we think is easy money. A lot of times people think they hit the jackpot when they file a lawsuit. They make certain things public, and that's, where you gain the public sympathy. I think he has a GoFundMe as well, so this is being milked quite a bit. But anyway, you saw on his camera them breaking the window. He's showing his hands, and he's now he wants to look as if he's more compliant now, because he wants to make sure that you have a angle of him being assaulted by the cop, which, like I said, I'm not condoning that, but again, this could have been avoided if he would have complied in the first place. So once they was able to get the door open and get him out the vehicle, he kept saying, no, don't punch me, no, don't punch me. But once he got dragged out the vehicle, you could see that he was still resisting. It wasn't like he was giving in at that moment. He was still resisting, even as they was trying to put his hands behind his back to handcuff him, he was pulling away. He was resisting. So I just want this to be a cautionary tale, at least for a lot of our young black men, because when I see these type of incidents occur with police officers, I automatically think of my son and hoping that this doesn't happen with him, and he understands, which he does. He does understand that we have to comply, and even if the officer is in the wrong, because you have a lot of dirty officers out there. I do get it. They'll try to single you out or profile you, but just cooperate. Make sure you have your license, registration. Make sure that you're prepared at all times. When you have this situation when when you have a traffic stop, comply, even if they're being a little bit more aggressive than they should be, or they're not following proper protocol. I know it's easier said than done, but just go with it. And, make sure, that's why I always encourage people to have a dash cam in their car. Make sure you have as much recorded as possible. And push come to shove, you comply. You did everything you're supposed to do. And if it warrants you to file a complaint, which Mr. McNeil didn't initially do, by the way, file a complaint, and you feel like you need to give representation in order to file a legitimate lawsuit, then you do that. But when you proceed to mouth off to the officer and you're being non-compliant, you want to be combative because you want to have a point to prove, it's not going to end well for you. So I encourage you, just remain calm, remain cooperative, and you'd be surprised. There's some cops that will not even take it as far as you'd expect if you just comply and just be respectful. That's my take on that that incident. I hope that when it comes to Mr. McNeil's situation, I just hope that everything works out the way it's supposed to, and we understand what the bottom line is. I just hope that everything works out the way it's supposed to. Bottom line is, were the police officers wrong in punching him and while he was in the car? Yes. But once he got out, once he was forced out of that vehicle, and you resisting, unfortunately all bets are off, with law enforcement. So you really need to be mindful of how you interact with these officers. And I know I may have the unpopular opinion, and I understand that maybe a lot of you may not agree with what I'm saying here, but that's okay, because I'm not trying to I'm trying to gain a broader perspective on this, and I'm not basing it off of what the ethnic group is. What it doesn't have nothing to do with race or anything. It's just has to do with the facts that are presented. And so I wanted to kind of give my little perspective on that, because we are in a trying time as it is, and we just have to make sure that we pick our battles wisely. There are moments where it's not worth you going back and forth with certain people, not just with cops alone, just in general. Just pick your battles, And it's not to say that you have to be weak. I'm not saying you have to tolerate a certain level of disrespect, but I just feel like you need to learn how to handle things accordingly and be a little bit more proactive and not reactive, okay? That's that on that. And also, I know, okay, a lot of there's a lot of trending going on with Jackie Christie and her daughter Chantel, the infamous slap. I mean, is it more famous than the Will Smith slap? Is it? But it's the infamous slap. And I know people have mixed reviews about that. And I want to say that um, Jackie had the right to defend herself. I mean, Jackie made an effort. She tried to sit down with Chantel with her pajamas on in the hotel lobby. I'm not sure why she didn't put any clothes on. I don't know why she didn't put any clothes on when she was in the hotel lobby, but I digress. Um, but Chantel led off the conversation, you know, hot. She was already aggressive. I'm not afraid of you. You can't bully me anymore. And Jackie was just trying to have a civilized conversation with her. And so I know how it is when you're trying to get the sympathy from the others, from the outside looking in, because I was not in their household, and I am aware of the alleged history, and how Jackie treated her daughters, especially because you never seen a son um, come out and say anything. Because I don't even think I knew that that her and Doug even had a son. I just knew about the two daughters, and I think that it's a different dynamic when it comes to mothers and how they treat their sons versus their daughters. So that's one thing. So I wasn't in their household, but we just know how her oldest daughter Takari came forward a few years back, and spoke on her relationship with her mother. She wrote a book about it, and I think that once she was able to um, let all that out, release all of that anger and resentment, I think that she was just basically trying to work towards a better relationship with her mom moving forward, especially for the sake of her children. But then, Chantel decided to come forward on the show, which I don't think she should have went to the show in the first place. But I don't think no one is questioning or dismissing the fact that Jackie allegedly mistreated her in the past. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that she had no business putting hands on her mother. It's bad enough that she was just cursing her out and calling her out her name and calling her Jackie. Um, that in itself was a lot. But when it was going back and forth in the hotel room, she claimed that Jackie touched her first. But I don't. Most of us didn't see that. We saw Jackie once it started escalating again, and Chantel wasn't trying to hear, what she had to say, and it just was going back and forth, and there was going to be no resolve that night. Jackie was like, "Look, I love you. Please leave." And so she was trying to get her to leave. Chantel wanted to escalate it, and I think that she probably initially touched her in order to escort her out the room. I don't think Jackie had the intention of actually calming her or choosing violence at that moment. I just feel like she wanted to escort her out, and Chantel was not complying. She wanted to be combative, So yeah, you see where I'm going there. Um, and then we saw Chantel aggressively push Jackie, and that's when she retaliated with that infamous slap that you see all over the social media. You know, she did a whole 90-degree swivel. I'm sorry, it ain't funny. I'm sorry, but but it was true. She did her head did a whole 90-degree swivel because she put hands on her first. She was the aggressor at that time, but let her tell it. She went back and told the group that Jackie swung on her. She was the victim. She didn't even share what led up to that. So the bottom line is that even though I do understand that parents are not exempt from accountability, and I know that Jackie is a person. She's, like what Tammy said, she's crazier than a Betsy bug or something like that. Yeah, Jackie does. She's a bit off. I mean, we get that she's off. She's a bit off, and I did witness how dismissive she was when Takari and Chantel came on the show. I think it was season 3 or 4 of Basketball Wives, and they was in a therapy session. And it was mentioning how they felt like Jackie should have been emotionally present, and so Jackie was only focusing on, the fact that she was able to provide for them financially and give them the bare necessities, when it came to financially supporting them. And they was trying to get her to understand that it's not, that's not all the support that they needed from her. So she was even dismissive then. So I do understand how, as parents, we need to learn to be held accountable for how we treat our children, even if we have their best interests. At times, it's not always um, it's not always in favor. It's not always in favor of the child at times. So when they get older, they tend to resent you and they judge you. They revere you for a while when they're a child, but then when they get older, they tend to judge you, because they know better at that time. They kind of know more, um, and they experience more, and so they judge more. So that's a given. However, even if you are frustrated and resentful and angry towards your parent, you do not put your hands on your parent. Like, I mean, I just think about the type of relationship my mom and I have, and there were times where we wanted to just grab each other by the throats, but we never did that. We exchanged words, and I mean, there are a lot of times where I've um, acted a certain way towards my mom that I'm not proud of at all. But just kind of, it's not just about her history of addiction that we talked about in her interview. It's not just about that. It's just, a number of things that we clash on. We clash. We don't always agree on things. We bump heads a lot. I mean, that's what we do. But it never come a time where I would ever entertain the thought of putting my hands on my mom. I mean, and and don't ever feel like you could even feel froggy enough to put your hands on my mother. Yeah, try that if you want to, okay? Try that if you want to. But yeah, that's just something that I would encourage. I mean, even though you have the right to feel the way you feel about your parent, if they were not there for you, or they neglected you, or they mistreated you, you have every right to act accordingly, hold them accountable without the the name calling, the disrespect in front of people, and assault. That's just, to me, it's not something that should be acceptable at all. So that's my take on that. I just wanted to, you know, speak to you a little something, something. Just wanted to come at y'all with a little something, something. While I'm in here in bed chilling, and I'm going to be chilling some more until a little bit later on, and then I'm gonna get up because I make it a habit not to be in the bed all day, because I try to make it a habit to um, understand the concept of the only time you should be in bed is to sleep and to have sex. And so 1 out of 2 ain't bad for me, okay? 1 out of 2 ain't bad. So that's my spiel for today. I don't know if I'm gonna get beat back on or not. If I do, that's fine. If not, that's okay too. I'll just see you again the next time. In the meantime, have a